My name is Ray. I am 61 years old. I didn't want to tell you this, but the world itself wants everyone to hear it. She slapped me so hard my glasses skidded across the restaurant floor. For a second, the whole place froze, forks midair, piano in the corner hitting a wrong note. I was still holding the envelope with the house keys and the papers I had signed that morning. "Don't touch me," Ava said, her voice sharp enough to cut. "Your mom's ex-husband. Mark is my real father." She said it slow, like she wanted every table to hear. Her new husband grinned into his drink. I bent down, found my glasses, and stood up. You learn at my age not to wrestle with the sting. I slipped the envelope into my pocket. "All right," I said quietly. "We're done pretending." Lydia sat at the far end with that new ring of hers flashing under the light. Not a word from her. Just a thin smile. I walked out without finishing my plate. At the door, I glanced up at the clock, 7:12 p.m. 1 month, I thought. By then, this will all be finished. At home, I spread 30 years of receipts across the kitchen table. Tuition, weddings, bailouts, every dollar Ava had ever needed. In the middle I wrote a line in my notebook, 28 days. No shouting. No hitting back. Only consequences. Revenge doesn't start with anger, it starts with paper. By morning, I'd canceled the emergency credit card, closed 2 accounts, and changed the passcode on my front door. The first call came from Ava. "Dad, we need to talk." I let it die on the counter. Tyler called next, his salesman tone cracking when I read him the confirmation numbers. "You'll regret this," he said. "You're cutting off your family." "No," I told him. "I'm making it accurate." Then I hung up. That evening, they came to the house. Ava stood on my porch with her hair pulled back tight, and anger burning behind her eyes. "You think freezing a card makes you strong?" she said. "You're nothing. You're my mother's ex-husband. Mark is my father. Tyler is my family." Her voice shook, but not with sadness, with meanness. I let her finish. Then I spoke slowly. "Background won't be paying your foreground anymore." Tyler shoved a paper at me, power of attorney, scrawled bold across the top. "Temporary," he said. "For your protection." I didn't even take it. "No," I said. Just that one word. They left with promises, threats, really, that I'd need them soon. But I'd already decided I needed less. I sat back at the table, circled tomorrow's date in the notebook, and wrote 3 words underneath: dealer. Insurance. County. The first moves had been made. And just before midnight the porch creaked again. Mark stood there, a leather folder in his hand, a smile on his face. "Evening, Raymond," he said. "Let's talk about your future." Mark stood in the wedge of porch light, folder balanced in his hand like it was proof of some destiny. His shirt was open 2 buttons too many, tan lines soft where work never touched him. "Evening, Raymond," he said, calm as you please. "Let's make this simple." I didn't move. Silence is a tool if you hold it steady. He took that as permission and stepped inside, eyes skating across the photos on the mantel like a realtor appraising square footage. "This place could be something, you know," he said. "Stage it right, paint it white, Brookside's hot now. You'd get top dollar." "At your age." "At my age," I said. "I know the difference between help and a shove." He smiled wider, flipped the folder open on my table. Contracts, pre-filled blanks, signatures half-drawn in faint pencil where he figured my hand should land. "Here's what makes sense. Family LLC? You transfer management of the house to us. We guarantee you a stipend, you stop worrying about upkeep. Limited medical proxy, just in case. Clean. Efficient." He tapped the page like a salesman knocking on the hood of a car. "Everyone wins." "Who runs this LLC?" I asked. "I do, practically," he said. "I know property. I know tenants. Ava's young, she'll learn. You'll enjoy the freedom." I didn't look at the papers. I looked at him. You mean you'll enjoy the control? The smile thinned. You're proud, Ray. Proud men die bitter. You don't want that. Let us carry the weight. I've carried it for 30 years. I said. My back's strong enough to see it through. He leaned forward, lowering his voice like it was intimacy instead of threat. Everyone declines. Don't make the decline messy. I closed the folder with one finger. I'm not declining, Mark. I'm deciding. He left with his teeth still showing but his eyes sharpened. At the porch he said, You'll regret making me an opponent. You're not my opponent, I said. You're a detail. Day 6 started with rain tapping the gutters. I like that sound, it makes the world honest. I took my notebook to the kitchen, checked boxes for the dealership, insurance, and bank, then wrote 3 fresh tasks: lawyer follow-up, utilities freeze, safe deposit box. Each line was another brick in the wall I was building between me and their hands. By mid-morning Ava texted again, We need to sit down as a family. That word, family, used like a leash. I didn't reply. At noon, Tyler called, voice syrupy. Ray, buddy, Ava's sorry about the way she spoke. Stress, you know how women get. Careful, I said. His voice stumbled. Look, all we're asking is some cooperation. We can handle the house better together. The bills. The maintenance. You're busy. I'm retired, I said. Busy isn't my problem. Leeches are. Click. He hung up. That's another thing age teaches you. People who use you can't stand silence that belongs to you. That evening Mrs. Benton came by with soup. She sat at my kitchen table, sipping slow. Heard voices raised yesterday, she said casually. Thin walls on this block. You recording still? I asked. She lifted her phone like a badge. Every time they step foot on your porch. Habit now. Keep them, I said. Might matter later. She nodded. Raymond, they're circling. You need everything neat. No mistakes. I'm neater than I've ever been, I told her. And I meant it. Day 7, Ava showed up alone. No Tyler, no Mark. Her eyes were red, but her posture was sharp. She stood on the porch like she owned it already. Dad, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're tearing us apart. I kept my arms folded. You slapped me. You called another man your father. That's already apart. She shook her head, as if I were a stubborn child. You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm teaching you that words cost. She tried to soften, stepping closer. Dad, I was angry. I didn't mean it. You meant it enough to say it loud in public, I said. You meant it enough to let him smile while you said it. Tears welled, but they didn't move me. I've seen real tears, Ellen's, when we couldn't pay the doctor bill, my father's, when he buried his own mother. Ava's looked like a tool she hadn't sharpened right. You'll die alone, she whispered. I'll die honest, I said, and closed the door. By day 8, the first letters arrived, late payments, frozen accounts, panic notes written fast. Tyler left a voicemail thick with threats. You can't do this, old man. You'll end up in court, and we'll make sure you lose everything. I saved the message, emailed it to Eddie. He called back laughing, not kind laughter, but the kind men make when they see a rope tightening on the right neck. Keep stacking them, Ray. Let them speak. The more they talk, the less I'll have to. Day 9, Mark tried subtle. He caught me outside trimming hedges. Ray, come on. Ava's fragile. Tyler's under pressure. You're stirring things up. I'm correcting things, I said. You can't win by punishing your own blood. Winning isn't the point, I said. Truth is. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You'll look like a bitter old man clinging to receipts. Good, I said. Bitter men live longer than gullible ones. He walked off shaking his head, like I'd missed a chance at salvation. I wiped my shears clean and kept clipping. Day 10, Ava came back with Tyler. This time they carried a folder. Not leather, cheap plastic, The kind you buy in a hurry. They slapped it on my porch table. Guardianship papers, Tyler said. Drafted. Ready. I didn't touch them. You think I'll sign myself into a cage? It's happening either way, Ava said, her voice flat. Mark says the court will side with us. You forget things, Dad. You're unstable. This proves it. I tapped my temple. I forget nothing. I write it down. I lifted my notebook, showed them pages filled edge to edge. Dates, times, words, you said? Records. Courts like records. For the first time, Tyler's smile cracked. You wouldn't. I already did. I said. Every threat, every insult, every plan you said out loud in my yard. On record. Ava's face strained of color. Tyler grabbed her arm. They left fast, folder forgotten on the table. I didn't touch it. Let them come back for it, or let the rain ruin it. Either way, it wasn't mine. Day 11 ended with another call from Lydia. Her voice was tight, rushed. Raymond, what are you doing? They're terrified. You're humiliating them. They humiliated themselves, I said. You can't treat Ava like an enemy. She's your daughter. She chose her side, I said. And Mark is her family now, she snapped. There it was, plain as paper. Then I'll treat him like family, I said. And show him exactly what that means. I hung up before she could answer. Wrote it in the notebook. Drew a box around it. And sat back, listening to the cicadas buzz outside, thinking, the trap is nearly set. That's where part 2 closes, on the edge of open war. Ava and Tyler rattled, Mark smiling less, Lydia showing her hand. My paper trail was built, each page another brick. The rest would be about showing them how high the wall had grown. The kitchen table is scarred oak, older than Ava. I bought it at a farm auction for $40 and carried it up the porch steps with sweat stinging my eyes. 30 years later, it was the battlefield. I laid everything out, tuition stubs, canceled checks, cashier's slips with my name in tired ink. Each one placed like a card in a deck only I knew how to shuffle. In the middle I stacked the new county forms. The trust language was dry, but I underlined the words that mattered: irrevocable, community, inheritance bar. Words like fences. That evening I called them. My voice was plain. Come tomorrow. 6 sharp. The house. No explanation. No negotiation. Ava hesitated, but Tyler's voice came from the background, smug and eager. We'll be there. Day 13, they arrived early. Tyler wearing his salesman grin, Ava already armed with complaints. Mark came too, uninvited, leaning in the doorway like he owned the air. Lydia hovered behind him, her eyes darting like she was calculating escape routes. I let them in, not with welcome but with procedure. Sit, I said. Bring nothing. Phones on the counter. Tyler scoffed. We're not children. Phones, I repeated. He hesitated, then set his down. Ava followed. Mark refused, of course. I've got calls, he said. Then take them outside, I told him. He stayed put, phone in pocket, grin steady. Fine. Sometimes it's better to let a man leave his fingerprints all over the crime scene. I spread the receipts across the table. No speech, no drama. Just numbers. Tuition, 2008, $12,400. Dance camp, 2009, $1,200. Wedding, 2019, $31,000. Deposit for Tyler's car, $2,000. Bailout after his job loss, $3,800. Every slip, every year, lined like bricks. Ava flushed red. Why are you doing this? To remember, I said. Because you've forgotten? Tyler leaned forward, smirking. This is pathetic. You can't buy love, Ray. She doesn't owe you forever just because you spent a little. A little? I slid the tally forward. $146,700. That's a life of Saturdays, Tyler. That's my back bent double so you could stand taller. Ava's voice cracked. Dad, it's not about money. No, I said. It's about respect. Which you traded for a man with a folder and a smile. Mark finally spoke, smooth as always. Ray, this ledger proves one thing: you cling to the past. Ava needs freedom, not an invoice. I slid a second paper onto the pile. This isn't an invoice. It's a trust document. As of tomorrow, this house belongs to a community foundation. It'll host veterans' families, foster kids who age out with nowhere to go. Ava, your name isn't on it. Neither is Tyler's. Neither is Lydia's. For a moment, the room was stone silent. Then Tyler barked a laugh. You're bluffing. Nobody gives away a house worth $500,000. Watch me, I said. The papers are notarized. The lawyer has the originals. Ava's eyes filled anger, not grief. You're cutting me out? You cut yourself out when you called another man your father. She slammed her hand on the table. You'll regret this, old man. Maybe, I said. But I'll regret it on my porch, not under your thumb. They stormed out, but not before Ava saw the 2 letters waiting on the counter. One envelope bore her name. The other Mark's. She grabbed hers, ripped it open in the yard. I knew what she saw, the tally of her debts and the final line, balance forgiven, respect not included. Mark pocketed his without reading. But I saw the flicker in his eyes. He knew I'd written something that could rot him from the inside. Day 15, Ava called past midnight. Her voice was broken, almost childlike. Dad, please, we can fix this. Just don't do anything final. But her voice wavered. Like she was reading lines she didn't believe. I said nothing, let the silence stretch. She hung up first. Day 16, Mrs. Benton sat in my kitchen while I brewed tea. They'll try again, she said. They already are, I told her. Mark's letter spelled out his real business: mismanaged condos, tenant complaints, missing escrow funds. I've sent copies to the state board. She smiled, small and sharp. Good. He's not used to prey biting back. Day 17 closed with me locking the front door, papers filed, trust sealed. Ava's last message pinged as I set the phone down. If you do this, I'll never forgive you. I wrote the words in my notebook, boxed them, and underlined twice. Then I whispered to the empty kitchen. That's the point. Day 18 began with a knock I didn't expect. Pastor Reynolds, coat still damp from the morning rain, stood on my porch with his Bible under one arm. Ray, he said, your daughter came to see me. Of course she had. Ava always knew which stage mattered. He stepped inside, looking uncomfortable, like a man asked to referee a fight in his own living room. She says you're cutting her out of your life. That you've, well, turned the community against her. I poured him coffee. I've turned nothing. I've just stopped paying for other people's mistakes. He nodded, stirring sugar he didn't need. She asked for Sunday? A chance to reconcile, publicly. She's hurting, Ray. Hurting, I said, or worried people know the truth. He sighed. Both, maybe. But the church is a place for truth. Come Sunday. Let her speak. Day 19, Tyler tried again. This time, cornering me in the grocery aisle between bread and cereal. Ray, he said, voice lowered. Enough with the theatrics. You made your point. End the circus before it hurts Ava's reputation. Her reputation is her own, I said. He leaned close, a whisper that smelled like cheap cologne. Old men don't win public fights. They get pitted or mocked. Walk away now and we'll keep this private. I picked up a loaf of bread, checked the date. Tyler, I'm too old to care about pity. Mockery I can live with. What I can't live with is lies. For the first time, he didn't smile. Day 20, I sat with Eddie, my lawyer, in his cluttered office. He wore the same lightning bolt tie as before, his desk piled with forms like snowdrifts. I played him Ava's late-night voicemail, Tyler's grocery store threats, and Mark's slick porch pitch. Eddie leaned back, hands laced behind his head. They're building a case for guardianship. That's clear. But they're sloppy. Every threat you've got recorded will shred their petition. Can I stop them before it starts? Maybe, he said. Or maybe you let them file. Nothing humbles quicker than losing in public record. He slid a folder across. Declarations of capacity, signed by your doctor. Paper shields. We'll have them ready before Sunday. Day 21, I walked to church early. The place smelled like old wood and coffee in styrofoam. Folks nodded, some cautious, some warm. News travels in towns like this without a paper trail. Ava arrived late, Tyler at her side, Mark and Lydia behind them. She wore black, as if grieving me already. Pastor Reynolds opened with prayer, then handed her the microphone. Her voice trembled at first. My father has been confused lately. He's lashed out. Closed accounts. Made rash decisions. She glanced at me, tears shining. But he's my father. I love him. I want us to heal. Murmurs filled the pews. Some sympathetic, some skeptical. She pressed on. We all say things in anger. I know I did. But I never stopped needing him. He's family. It was performance. Polished, trembling in the right places, rehearsed in others. When she finished, the pastor looked at me. Ray, would you like to respond? I stood slowly. My voice carried steady. She slapped me. In public. Called another man her father. Her husband mocked me while she said it. Her mother watched. That's truth. I held up my notebook. Every number, every receipt, every word since has been written down. If you doubt, I'll read them. The church was silent. No cough, no shuffle. Just stillness. Ava's tears vanished into a glare. Tyler shifted, muttering something I couldn't catch. Mark smiled tight. Lydia looked away. I closed the notebook. Forgiveness may come one day. But respect will not be begged for. Not here, not anywhere. And I sat. Day 22, the town was split. Half saw a wounded daughter, half saw an entitled child. At the diner, whispers followed me. At the hardware store, 3 men I'd worked alongside patted my shoulder. At the post office, one woman muttered shame under her breath as she passed. I didn't argue. I let the ledger speak louder than gossip. Day 23 ended with Tyler waiting in the church parking lot, leaning against his car. You're finished, old man, he muttered as I passed. I stopped, looked him in the eye. I was finished the night she slapped me. Everything since is just accounting. He sneered, but there was no strength in it. His car door slammed harder than he meant. I walked home under the streetlights, the ledger in my pocket, the sound of my own steady steps louder than any threats they could make. Day 24 started before the sun. I sat at the scarred oak table, the one that had carried 30 years of meals, bills, and arguments, and opened my notebook. The page was blank for a long time. I wrote 3 words, "This week ends it," then stared at them until the ink sank deep into the paper. After a while, I tore the page out, burned it over the sink, and watched the smoke curl into nothing. Some things are too final to leave in ink. They belong only in memory. That afternoon Eddie called from his office. Ray, good news. The trust is locked in place. And their guardianship petition? The judge tossed it out. Called it sloppy and borderline manipulative. Your recordings sank them. Then it's done, I said. Not yet, Eddie replied. They'll keep clawing until you slam the door yourself. He was right. So I set the stage. Day 25 I called Ava. My voice was calm, stripped of all softness. Dinner. Friday. You, Tyler, your mother, and Mark. 6 sharp. No excuses. There was a pause, just breathing. Then she said, All right. She thought it was an olive branch. It wasn't. It was a summons. Day 26, I prepared the weapons, not guns or fists, but papers and truths sharpened to points. The repo notice for Tyler's car, already signed and scheduled. The complaint against Mark, stamped and received by the State Board. The trust documents for the house, certified and untouchable. And the letter I had written by hand, folded neat, waiting inside the same envelope that once held the keys I meant to give Ava. I placed it in the center of the table where they'd have to reach for it. That evening Mrs. Benton came by, as if she could smell the storm brewing. She stood in my kitchen, arms folded. "You're sure about this, Raymond? Once you say the words, there's no path back." I poured her tea, sat across from her. "Mercy was spent years ago. All I have left is accuracy." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then make it clean." Day 27, I cooked stew the way Ava used to beg for when she was 12, slow, heavy with beef, potatoes softened just right. The smell filled the house. Memory tried to dig its claws in, showing me her laughter at the table, the way she'd tilt her head and ask for seconds. For a minute, I almost wavered. Then I remembered her palm cracking across my face, her voice saying, "Mark is my real father." The memory soured like milk. At 6 sharp, the knock came. Ava walked in first, dressed in black like she was attending my funeral. Tyler followed, smirking, smug. Lydia moved stiffly, eyes darting, lips pressed as if bracing for impact. Mark strolled last, confident, the kind of confidence that grows in men who've never been told no enough times. We sat. I ladled stew, though nobody touched it. Conversation limped along, weather, errands, things people say when they're avoiding the real subject. Finally, I slid the envelope across the table. "Everything you've been pressing for," I said. "All your answers in one place." Ava's hands trembled as she tore it open. She expected deeds, transfers, maybe some last concession. Instead, she found the trust certificate, the repo notice, the complaint against Mark, and my handwritten letter. She read it aloud, voice breaking by the last line. "To my daughter, you chose your family when you struck me and called another man your father. So now you have them. All I leave you is absence. Do not call me Dad again. Raymond Cole." The silence after was brutal. Tyler grabbed the repo notice, his grin dying. "This is illegal." "It's legal," I said. "Every number, every form, every date, filed, confirmed, recorded." Mark's eyes raked the complaint, color draining from his face. "You think you can ruin me?" "I don't think," I said. "I know. The board will decide how deep the rot goes." He opened his mouth, but Mrs. Benton, sitting quietly in the corner with her phone recording, cleared her throat. His jaw snapped shut. Lydia finally spoke, her voice brittle. "Raymond, you've become a cruel man." "No," I said. "I've become an honest one." Ava's hands shook, papers sliding from her grip. "You're cutting me out? Out of everything?" I leaned forward, voice steady. "You cut yourself out when you slapped me and called another man your father. I'm just finishing the paperwork." They left in fragments, Ava sobbing, Tyler cursing, Mark silent, Lydia muttering prayers under her breath. The house felt lighter with every step they took away. Day 28, I rose early, made coffee, and sat at the oak table one last time. The chair across from me was empty, but I could still see a little girl bent over crayons, drawing houses with roofs shaped like hats. I let that memory linger a moment. Then I buried it. At noon, the director from the Community Foundation arrived. I slid the keys across the table. "House is yours now. Take care of it." He shook my hand, thanked me, and left with the envelope. I locked the door behind him and stepped out into the street with nothing in my pockets but my notebook. I didn't look back. Some endings are cruel because they must be. This one was. The end.